Hi. Today we are starting a new series. Again, my name is Yichao Martins, licensed marriage and family therapist, couples therapist. I want to talk about loneliness in ADHD affected relationships. I hear from my clients in couple therapy all the time. The less ADHD partner I call them. They tell me that they often feel very lonely in their relationship with their partners with more ADHD symptoms. That is very sad to hear. So I wanted to explore and to share with you my exploration. What are the situations and the stories that when a partner feels lonely in ADHD affected relationships? So let's think from the perspective of the less ADHD partner that tend to stepping up more and more burned out. Um, I categorize those situations into two. The first one is what I call emotional disconnection, or from the perspective of the partner experiencing that, feels like emotional abandonment. I'm using that term in from their perspective. I'm not saying that is abandonment, but in their shoes, it does feel like being abandoned emotionally. What does it look like? Maybe when their partner have more ADHD symptoms, hyper focus on something else or someone else, instead of giving them the presence that they would like to have or the attention they would like to have. That's one situation. Another situation similarly is when their partner have more ADHD symptoms, gets distracted, even though they would like to be present emotionally, but their brain is somewhere else, or they are being overstimulated, so or they're busy regulating, or they are dissociating because of earlier trauma. We do not know what's going on in their head, but they seem to be withdrawn energetically, sometimes more than energetically, um, in the dynamic they're in. And that's what I call emotional disconnection. And people often use the term lonely. They feel lonely in the relationship with their partner that has more ADHD symptoms. Um, Let me give you a story. Jerome, I'll use that name, that he talks about how his partner Rob um, is bothered or suffering from the famous RSD, rejection sensitivity disorder, that's often associated with ADHD symptoms. I see that as part of the childhood trauma or developmental trauma that the more ADHD partner go through when they grow up, being judged and criticized for being lazy, not paying attention to, or stupid, or not working hard enough, whatever the judgments or criticisms are, that internalized. And so they are hyper attuned to any cues of criticism. So Jerome will say, even after Rob did the dishes, right, for example, and then they have this frown on their face because it was not clean or didn't get stacked properly, the way Jerome will like it. And then Rob immediately got shaken and he shows up as stomping out of the kitchen, go to the bedroom, close the door, and not talking to Jerome for a long period of time. Being emotionally distant, withdrawn. So Jerome says, well, it feels like my frustration, my feelings has no space, and there's no room in this relationship for my frustration and my feelings. And it's all about Rob, his trauma, his sensitivity to judgment, his shameful parts. There's no room for me and my parts and my feelings. I feel very much alone in that, emotionally disconnected and supported. So that's situation one. Situation number two is when the more ADHD partners that are struggling with some executive functioning planning, for example, taking care of detailed tasks, that the less ADHD partner, the one that step up to function more and to take care of business, tend to feel very, very much alone in those tasks, from household chores to managing the relationships to pay the bills and to make sure everything is stocked up in the house and all the things that you gotta do as an adulting. So there are actually more parts involved in that. The state is being solo and alone in tackling a lot of things that people hope to share when they're in a committed partnership, but end up landing on one person's shoulder most of the time. So they feel very much alone in that, and they tend to have parts that's resentful, that's burnt out, that's criticizing other people, and that's also feeling ashamed of their own externalizing of criticism and aggression, um, and then many more. I will spend more time talking about those parts and how they interact with the ADHD partners parts in the next couple videos. But I want to give you another story to back up this situation so you have a more lively story that's attached to this situation. Let's say Ferro and her partner has a lot of ADHD symptoms, which is making executive functioning very difficult for him. So Farah has learned over the time they're together in their marriage that it's much easier for her to do the tasks instead of telling her partner what to do and then see they fail and they get frustrated. So she does everything. She gets the kids ready in the morning while packing everybody's lunch. She goes to all the school functions and after school activities, including those things that's required from school, like assisting the children for their school projects, field trips, anything you can imagine. The boring, mundane, repetitive tasks that doesn't really show a lot of progress and for you to feel satisfied, but you gotta do it. You know what I'm talking about. So she's very feeling alone in those tasks that are co-parenting tasks, that it drains her energy, to use a neurodivergent community's popular term, the spoon. She feels like there's only so many spoons that she has, and then she used it all on doing things that could be shared by her co-parent and partner, but she's carrying everything by herself. So by the end of the day, she doesn't have any spoon left, and so she has very little energy left for herself, and for her romantic relationship in her partnership. So that's the example of another situation when someone's feeling alone and there are a lot of pain and other feelings and parts associated to that. Those two are a little different. One is very emotionally lonely, the other is feeling alone. So I will spend more time in the next couple sessions to talk about those parts, the non-ADHD partner or the less ADHD partners feeling in those states, and the difference between the loneliness and being alone, and how they activate or interact with a more ADHD partner's parts. In some way, both of their early parts get activated and then start to interact and dance in a way that's not very effective and that's not working for their relationship, their ADHD affected relationship. So until next time, my friends, thank you for viewing.